We interrupt that report because we want to take you live now to Tallahassee, where Governor Ron DeSantis is giving his daily coronavirus update. Let's listen in.
A lot of these tests come from our drive-through testing sites, which have been very successful, and some, like our Broward site's been a model for other National Guards to use throughout the country. But those sites can't necessarily serve everybody. Not everyone has access to a car, may not have the ability to travel all the way to one of those drive-through sites. And so we need to be able to reach into communities, particularly underserved communities, to provide access to testing. We worked with UF Shands to develop a program for some neighborhoods in Jacksonville that were underserved, and I've asked Director Moskowitz to work with local communities to see where these good locations would be. These two locations were some that with local input we felt would make a real impact. So tomorrow I'll go and announce, and then Saturday they will be open for testing. So you'll have 60 National Guardmen along with the Department of Health staff and the Broward Sheriff's Office. They'll be operating the two sites. Each will start doing 200 tests a day. And the process is anybody that is experiencing COVID-19 symptoms can walk up to the site to receive a test or call to set up an appointment to be tested. Appointments can be made by calling 954-412-7300. Each client will be provided a bag of resources upon exiting the site. DOH and Broward will call each person to advise them of their test results. If a person tests positive, DOH and Broward is partnering with the federally qualified health centers for follow-up telehealth. We think that this is an important way to expand testing into different segments of the society, and we hope it'll be successful, and we hope that the response is good. Yesterday, I announced that Department of Management Services Secretary with me today, Jonathan Satter, was going to take over the COVID-19 response regarding unemployment compensation at the Department of Economic Opportunity. Today, along with Secretary Satter, I'd like to provide additional update on where we stand with the system and how we're moving forward to get people their money as quickly as possible. While there was certain things that have been done with the PEGA website to allow people to submit their information more quickly, ultimately we need to get people paid, and so I've directed Secretary Satter that's got to be the #1 priority. So far, DEO has made 121,102 payments to Floridians in reemployment assistance, totaling almost $50 million. This includes 33,623 individual Floridians who applied for reemployment of benefits after this economic upheaval in the middle of March. This week, DEO mailed 23,801 checks for $600 from the federal money under the CARES Act. So those are paper checks that are going out. And the reason why is that we want it to be submitted or received as quickly as possible. So Floridians who receive their $600 check will receive their state benefits for reemployment assistance via either direct deposit or prepaid debit card based on the individual applicant's preferences. And so while we've made some progress in the recent days, it's not nearly enough. We have an unprecedented amount of claims, and we've got to work through them. One of the things that was slowing up the claims is there's a provision in law which says you have to recertify every 2 weeks that you're unemployed. Well, if the system is suffering under too much stress, why would we want people to have to go on and recertify that? We know what the economy is doing right now. So I signed an executive order today, and even though I had told them to waive any needless bureaucratic rules, I had to today sign an executive order to suspend the need for people to return to the Connect system to recertify their unemployment status. We understand what's going on with the economy now. We hope it's short term, but clearly this is not something that if you just look hard enough, you're all of a sudden going to find a new job. And so I understand that. That's why we're waiving this. And I think that from the folks, the technicians have told me, that will relieve some stress on the system. So some of the PEG applications could be run through Connect, and we need to do as good as we can on that. But certainly this is not a time to get bogged down in bureaucracy and get bogged down in red tape. So this will hopefully free up some more space to be able to move more claims through. It's not a silver bullet. There's a bunch of moving pieces here, but I do think that it will help. And Secretary Satter will say a few words here in a minute, but I've told him, take whatever action you need to speed this process along. We want to make sure that people are getting their compensation for unemployment. It's a top priority of the state of Florida, and so he understands those marching orders, and he's working hard with the staff there. And they're working around the clock. I mean, we're having this thing go 24/7, and I think we need to do that given the circumstances. If you look around the state of Florida, I've been talking with a number of folks in various parts of the state with hospitals who are working there, and I think the numbers have been pretty stable for Florida. Statewide, we've got about 43% of the beds in Florida are available. ICU beds just under 40%, and in Miami-Dade, which has by far most cases, you got about 42% of the hospital beds available and 40% of the adult ICU beds available. Most of them feel, that they've seen this kind of plateau in terms of what's going on in the hospitals. Most of them feel confident that they're going to be able to meet the needs going forward, and so we're looking at things like, can we start having some of these, quote, elective surgeries resume? There were some things in the president's guidance that I just got that he's going to be announcing at 6 about that. But it does raise the larger question of what does phase 2 look like here in the state of Florida. We had a great call with the president and all the governors a couple hours ago talking about, how CDC envisions this, what their recommendations would be. And so we're internalizing that. I obviously have a task force that we've created. We're going to have the first meeting tomorrow, and we need to be ready to get back to work. There's going to be a lot that goes into this, and you're talking about different segments of the economy, different measures for protection, but I think that we're going to be able to come up with a thoughtful approach that will allow folks to get back to work and hopefully mitigate some of the economic damage that's been done. So that will be something we're going to be working on round the clock for the next few days, and hopefully we'll have a plan very soon on that. For the latest updates on our effort to fight COVID-19, please text FL COVID-19 to 888-777. Again, FL COVID-19 to 888-777. I want to let Secretary Satter come up and say a few words, and we'll both be ready to take some questions. John?
Thank you, Governor. About 24 hours ago, the governor called me, maybe 26 hours ago, and asked me to be some boots on the ground and help with the unemployment issues at the Department of Economic Opportunity. The mandate was singular focused, and that is to get eligible Floridians paid their unemployment benefits. So the governor has given us authority to rally all state resources. We have thousands of state employees assisting in the effort, processing the paper applications that have arrived. We're constantly making software upgrades. Technology, as you know, is a complicated enterprise, but we're making those efforts every day. And most importantly, the governor has allowed us to cut through the bureaucracy and red tape that government is so frequently a part of, and I applaud the executive order that you've issued today and want to thank you for helping us streamline the process to get Floridians paid.
Great. All right.
Yeah, can you talk about the number of claims that have been filed so far since the March? And it's up like 33,000?
John may have the exact number. I could say it's an unprecedented amount of claims, and his charge is to process those as quickly as possible. Prior to this, if you applied in January, this is a cumbersome process. It would take several weeks. But when the unemployment rate's 3%, it's a little bit different than what we have now. So I've told him, all roadblocks removed. Let's get it done. Obviously, this interfaces with federal databases when you're talking about Social Security number, all this other stuff, and so that's just things that have to be worked through. But my charge to him is work through it and do it 24/7 so that we can get the checks out. Jared is he is preparing different plans for hurricanes, and we're obviously we hope that we get spared, but we're preparing that we don't, and so he's working on all kinds of contingency arrangements. You know, it will be an issue if this, depending on how this virus, how prevalent it is during hurricane season, and so we'll have to be ready for it. Well, look, if you're getting 100 claims a day like we were, that stuff can be worked through. I mean, they had a staff. Actually, I remember Lawson coming in telling me they had too many people because there just weren't a lot of jobless claims being filed. This is an emergency situation. I hope that this is not a situation that is enduring for a long time. I think from the president on down, people want to get over this hump, get people back to work. It's not going to be 100% like it was prior, but we got to get on that road to recovery, and so hopefully we'll be able to do it. But with my emergency authority, I've waived pretty much everything I could waive. This one, I didn't think I needed to do an executive order for it because the Labor Department has said this can be waived. The agency didn't do it, so I had to force their hand to do it, and I think that that'll make things move a little bit smoother. So there's a whole bunch of different things we've done. Normally, when you before you can even apply, there's a time period. So we waive that, so at least people were able to apply immediately. But yeah, I mean, obviously, it was those rules were put in a different circumstance than right now. Yes, sir. I mean, you could talk to the legislator about it. I mean, I don't know that it's a legislative fix. I mean, I think the system, they're working through the system. I think it's more of a technical, there's more technical issues that need to be worked through. If those technical issues were solved, then you'd be able to move it quicker. And they've actually have done some things, which I really appreciate, and hopefully they can do more. I'm not sure what legislating, I mean, look, we need to do this now. I mean, what are you going to do, come up and debate?
The governor, as well as John Satter, who has taken over the unemployment issues at the Department of Economic Opportunity, talking about the unprecedented number of unemployment claims and also an executive order that suspends the need to recertify an unemployment status every 2 weeks. We'll have much more on that coming up.